I'm actually supposed to be watching Daniel Tibernauer's geometric topology lectures. I really should, because I never got topology. It just didn't seem like mathematics to me. But I just cleaned up this Apple keyboard. I bought it for £3 from the charity shop, because something like that's definitely worth £3, and it was filthy, and it's pretty much working. All the keys work. There's a bit of slack in that space bar, but it's attached. I left the stickers on because I quite like them. I don't know what that key's supposed to be, but the way I've arranged it is that all the keys except that one are what Microsoft Windows thinks this keyboard is when I plug it in. So it's got that up in that corner. It's good, and it's actually a USB hub as well as a keyboard. And it's well made. The only thing is that my tools, my little tiny screwdrivers for doing these things, it's stripped. I don't know whether I did it or the previous owner, because somebody did take it apart, I think. But they're pretty much stripped, these screws. But I can just replace the screws, I think. So those cost £3. Those things cost £5. These things cost about £5 or less, and you can fit SD RAMs onto these. These are easy to draw SD RAM cards, so that you can have a kind of equivalent of a disk drive if you just make a micro SD slot. And the way you can do that is just by getting one of the adapters for normal SD cards, and you can actually, the pitch is 1/10 of an inch, so you can, is that what they are? 0.1? Whatever. The pitch is roughly the same as the pitch on those, so you can just solder a header pin onto, you can solder headers onto an SD card, however many you need, solder all the pins, and then plug it into the breadboard, and that gives you a micro SD slot in which you can insert micro SD cards into the Pico, and then you get 32 gigabytes of store, and that gives you a terminal, and you can plug a mouse. You can plug a mouse into that as well. So it's looking like a cost of about £20 for a really good workbench, which you can then use as an electronics instrumentation panel, and you can plug in all your other instruments. And I was looking at a really interesting 1981 issue of Wireless World, or Practical Wireless, or something like that, with a nice article about measuring capacitance and things. So it ought to be, you can make a really good electronics workbench these days for very little money, and you can use that to start restoring old electronics and getting stuff working. But the thing is, while I was fixing this, I snapped the little plastic. There's a tiny little there's these tiny plastic clips that click in to hold the key, to stop the keys from falling out when you do that. They're all these tiny little bars. I don't know if you can see the bar in there, but it's at just that point there's a little plastic bar on the keyboard. I snapped it off with my tissue while I was cleaning it, so I had to buy a tube of Yoo-Hoo of Loctite super glue, and that cost £3. So doubled the price of the keyboard. But it's good. Look at all these buttons. Some of them, that's actually the numlock button. Look at that, 16 function keys. So many alts and options. All these modifiers: Shift, Control, Alt, Option. Shift, Control, Alt. Option, left and right. I still haven't been able to find out how many key rollovers it is and things like that. You don't typically know that stuff from drivers, do you? I don't know. The way to find out is start an Ubuntu. I've started making my terms login because I was trying to get Windows services for Linux to maintain what are these two files called? Wtemp and utemp, so that the who command works. Because look, if you type who, there's nobody logged in, but that's because you haven't got Gettys running. But I was thinking that if I ever got a terminal working, I ought to, in theory, be able to connect the terminal to a laptop and have a second user on the laptop logged in through WSL. All I need to do is start a Getty from the command line and have it listen on the comm line, and it ought to just work. So it ought to let someone else log in to the laptop and use Linux and whatever Windows you can get at via the WSL container. I don't think there's much, although there's quite a bit. These weird things that you can. The WSL, Windows can look into the WSL container. That's how Visual Studio Code does that. It actually runs in Windows and it looks at the WSL container stuff to get its source code, get at your code. I don't know if that's such a good idea. I don't know why I'm wearing my headphones, because I'm not listening to anything. So yeah, there's WSL, and if I open a new terminal as administrator, nothing happens. Oh, there, that comes up and then it says yes. So if I plug in the keyboard, it's now working. What's the extra one? 717283. So I can never remember the command. It's Oh my god, I'm exposing all my, oh, what's it called? USB IPZ. Control R. USB. If you press Control R again, no, not Control, not Option T, Control R. And then Control Attach bus ID 83. That's attached, that's a Windows command attaching that bus. So 83 is now attached to Ubuntu, so when I press return, it's not working anymore. If I go here and press return, it's not working, but if I type ls USB, it sees Apple Inc. extended keyboard. So I can now use Linux tools to query the keyboard and find out if it's fancy electronics or not. It probably is. It looks really well made. Yeah, that's a very long video about not very much at all. I was feeling bad about that girl that I met in the Waterstones. I really should have said to her, look, if you get in touch or something, but I didn't want to feel like I was. I don't think 56-year-olds should chat up 18-year-olds in Waterstones.